Hello everybody, this is your Shruthi ma'am, and today we're going to do a fantastic warm-up session for the evolution chapter. Okay, so all of you preparing for your board exams, in less than about half an hour, I'm going to help you revise the entire evolution chapter. And remember that the notes I'm using today, my PDF in itself, is made particularly for your revision. Okay, so easily you will be able to revise all the concepts and also get completely prepared for your board exam in no time. So adanale definitely scan this QR code and join our WhatsApp community if you still have not joined. நம்ம Xylem Learning, the online crash course has been launched pasangla. So இந்த ஒரு crash course December 26th ல இருந்து ஆரம்பிக்க போகுது. So online this course is only 4,200 and the offline fees including your materials and tab will come to about 19,500. So you can now use the code XPL10 and get a 10% off. So utilize this opportunity and definitely do enroll at the earliest because seats are filling extremely fast. Okay, and this offer is also limited for a very particular period of time, so definitely do come in and also definitely subscribe our channel because ippathiledhu neenga board exam mudikira varaikum we are going to be there for your preparation. Okay, now coming to the evolution chapter, actually speaking this chapter is nothing but a story of how the life forms have evolved. Okay, so a lot of students feel like this is a very dry subject and no ma'am, there is nothing interesting about this, but actually if you see today, whatever we see, whatever the different forms that we have, everything is a result of evolution, isn't it? So the fact that from a fish an amphibian came, an amphibian evolved into a reptile, then a bird, then a mammal. So all of this is such a fascinating thing, and today I will help you revise all of this very quickly. Okay, now origin of life. When I say origin of life, first thing you have to understand is there are different theories about origins of life that have been there. Firstly, even before the origin of life, you have to understand that the universe and the earth were formed almost, the universe is approximately about 14 billion years old. Okay, so 3.8 billion years old, and the earth is about 4.5 billion years old. So we believe that there was one mega explosion that we call as the Big Bang theory. Okay, so this Big Bang theory is what we believe is the single explosion that caused the temperature to drop, the pH to come back to normal, and through that all the gaseous clouds formed the galaxies, and then the particles came together and formed the planets. That's what we believe. Okay, so early earth conditions were very different. We didn't have an atmosphere, we did not have oxygen. Okay, so we had all of these reducing gases that were present like the methane, carbon dioxide, ammonia, and all of these. We had UV rays that were coming in, so we believe that the UV rays broke the hydrogen. Okay, broke the hydrogen and the water vapor into hydrogen and oxygen, and then from the water vapor we had the oxygen that started to release. Then slowly it combined with other particles, other gases, and it formed carbon dioxide, and then other water vapor molecules and other gases that we have slowly came up from there. Then initially we did not have ozone. Then again the oxygen in itself split into free radicals and then combined to form a ozone layer. Then these water vapors condensed and then they brought rain, and these rain filled up all the craters of the world and it formed the oceans. Okay, and life appeared almost 500 million years after the earth formed. Okay, so almost 4 billion years ago is when life started to come. Now, if you look at the life's origin, there are many theories. Okay, for example, panspermia said that some spores from other planets came, it landed on the earth, and from there we started to gain the life forms in the planet. That is one theory which is rejected. Okay, it is not true. Then spontaneous generation said that from any decaying matter life will just come up. Okay, but that was disproved by Louis Pasteur, so we don't believe in these theories anymore. Okay, so apart from these theories, what theory we accept is something called as chemical evolution. Okay, so chemical evolution is what Oparin and Haldane, these were two scientists who proposed it. Okay, so what they said was there were some inorganic molecules that were there. From there, in the early earth conditions, we would have had some organic compounds that were formed. Now, from these organic molecules, slowly we started having the non-cellular forms of life, and then slowly one day all of these molecules came together, made organelles, and then formed the last cell. Okay, and from there this cell became more complex and complex and complex and started forming the life forms. That's what we believe as a chemical evolution. So this was proposed by Oparin and Haldane. Okay, and they said that all these organic molecules came from the inorganic constituents. Okay, this was their theory. Then from there, Miller and Urey. So Miller, S.L. Miller is an American scientist who thought, okay, let me check. So he created this apparatus. Okay, so it had methane, it had hydrogen, ammonia, okay, it had water vapor, temperature conditions were 800 degrees. So it kind of replicated an early earth kind of an atmosphere there, and they try to induce a spark, which we believe could have been because of a lightning, because of the UV rays, could have been whatever. But when the spark happened, what happened was, in this water vapor, okay, whatever they condensed and they took the liquid out, they could find sugars, bases, fats, and all of these organic molecules from this, mainly amino acids and all this, from the result of this water vapor that they got. Okay, so this proves that similar compounds were there in space also. So these compounds are the ones that slowly started to evolve. Okay, so we believe that the first non-cellular life came about 3 billion years ago, which were all these amino acids forming the proteins, RNA, polysaccharides, and so on. So then the molecules started to reproduce themselves, and then about 2 billion years ago is when we had the first cellular life, who were simple cells, and they were in the water first. Okay, so all life started in the water. Okay, now apart from this, we have something called as the theory of special creation, wherein the Lord just created this because of some kind of an external force. Okay, and we also they, according to this theory, they believe that whatever organisms we see were all like this only from the very beginning. Okay, but that is not true, so it is obviously rejected. Okay, now later on there was some scientist called as Darwin. So what Darwin said, so what Darwin did was he took up his boat. Okay, he took his ship called the HMS Beagle. So he went on a voyage. Okay, he said, okay, I'm going to find out whatever happened in the world, and he left. So when he left, he saw that there were some similarities of the current organisms with the organisms that have already been extinct. Okay, so from there he understood that life forms have changed gradually over time. It is not like we were created like this and we are retained like this. So gradually these life forms have evolved, extinctions have occurred, and from the extinctions, it's not like it's completely gone. From there a new form has come. Okay, there is the different forms have arisen from the previous existing forms. So gradually they have evolved, forming the Earth's history, is what Darwin told us. Okay, so he said that there is so many variations in the population, right? There is so much of variation that can be created fundamentally because of sexual reproduction, but also because of mutations and other reasons that could have been there. Because of that, different individuals have different traits, and this trait can certainly affect the survival. Okay, so what Darwin told was there is a survival of the fittest. Okay, meaning there is, okay, let's say there are 10 individuals. When 10 individuals will reproduce, not all 10 will be the same. maybe 5 might have a variation that is better suited in the environment compared to the other 5. So then what happens, those 5 people will compete better for the basic climate, food, physical factors and all that, and these characteristics will enable them to survive and be advantageous to them compared to the other 5. So these 5s are the one who will produce more progeny and will survive longer. That's what he called as the survival of the fittest. And he also said this survival of the fittest may be there, but who selects this character as to who should live and who should die? It is basically nature. So whoever has a superior trait, nature itself will favor them and nature itself will increase their population. So this kind of a mechanism brings about a gradual change, and this causes an evolutionary progress in the species, is what he said. Okay, now from there, what supporting evidence he got was firstly Alfred Wallace. Okay, so he was a naturalist who was doing his work in the Malay archipelago. So in the archipelago, he saw that different species had evolved. In the same time, Darwin also came up with a very similar observation. Okay, so geological biological correlation means the geological history, how the continents have been formed, how the different countries and landscapes have been formed, is directly matching the biological history. So that means all life forms had a common ancestor, and then slowly as the geological periods evolved, these species also evolved with it. So geography is directly related to biology. That is what they saw. Okay, so what are the different evidences we have for the evolution? First thing, fossils. Okay, we call this as paleontological evidence. So that means whatever preserved forms we have, bones, whatever prints or whatever we may have, we can see it in a cross section. So when you cut a rock, when you cut a rock like this, the downmost part, the least the most depth wala first part is something that happened so many years ago. Then on top of that was then more recent. As you come up, it's basically walking up the geological history, the biological history also. So over the geological time, all of these animals died. We kept burying them. So their fossils we can see and we can find out how the evolution has taken place. Okay. Now apart from that, now when you look at the key observations of these paleontological evidence, firstly you can see that most modern organisms are, closer to the fossils. Okay, so some of them even died, but today's animals are still closer to them. For example, a crocodile can resemble a dinosaur in so many ways, even if we say that the dinosaur is extinct. Okay, now apart from that, when we study sedimentary layers, first thing is how they have changed over time, we can get to know. Okay, then what kind of organisms, like forms, were present in only certain geological time spans. Only that time they were available. Like for example, the dinosaurs. Today we don't have dinosaurs at all, right? So they came in the Jurassic period and then they ended in the Triassic period. So this kind of time span we can gauge from the fossil records. And also the different times in Earth history, how new forms have come also we can see. Okay, and using carbon dating principles, or different mechanisms, we can find out their age and we can find out the exact period when they lived. Second is the embryological evidence. Okay, so this hypothesis was created by Ernst Haeckel. Okay, so he said that the vertebrate embryos show features that are not there in the adults. Means what? For example, the fetus of a human, if we see, in the initial period there will be a tail. But do we have tails once we grew? No. It has a reduced structure that is formed. Correct. So all vertebrate embryos will develop all the vestigial organs first. Okay. So which is functional in the fish but is vestigial in us. But all of these are created when the embryo is forming, kind of telling us how the ancestry is coming. So we say that embryos will recapitulate the evolutionary history. So the fact that we had a tail, we had a pharyngeal gill slit, all of this will reappear in the embryos. Now that we had another scientist called Bayer. So Bayer said that embryos do not pass through these adult stages. It's not like, a human will pass through a fish, a chicken, a reptile, and then only it will become a mammal. No. It is that embryological evidences will indicate a shared ancestry. So it is not exactly recapitulation. So recapitulation means first the embryo will become a fish, then it will become an amphibian, then it will become a reptile, bird, and then it will become a mammal. That's not true. So it is just that it will indicate certain features that were there in the ancestors but may not be there in the adult. So those ancestral features will come first, and only then the embryo will start developing into the complete organism, is what he said. Okay. Then coming to the comparative anatomy and morphology, this is very important, guys. So first point is, when you look at the homologous structures, which is divergent evolution basically. So what we mean, I'll tell you what is divergent. So we are in a house. Okay. So there is a father, there is a mother, there is a grandfather, grandmother, baby, everybody is there. Okay. So one person is a student. He or she goes to school. Then 1% is going to the college, 1% is going to the hospital because they are a doctor, so 1% is going to the court because they are a lawyer, then somebody is going to the tailor shop, somebody is going to the grocery store, somebody is going to the IT office. So like that, from the same origin, we all have different functions and we are moving out. We are diverging. Correct? So that is what we call as divergent evolution. And here, all of these structures have a common origin. But functionally, they are all different. Understood? So same structure along different directions for different needs. Okay, so this will indicate a common ancestry. For example, if you look at the mammals' limbs, okay, a bat, a whale, a cheetah, and a man have the same structure, but they are modified for different functions. Bat will fly, okay, whales will swim, cheetah will run, and man uses it for holding, writing, and other crafts and tool making that we are using our hands for. So end of the day, though the structure is the same, functions are all completely different. Understood? Now this can even include the vertebrate hearts and brains. We all have the same origin, but functionally all of the vertebrates have different kinds of functions. Now when you look at the plants, the thorns also, as well as the tendrils in the cucurbita, all of them are coming from the same axial extension, but one is a thorn for protection, another one is a tendril for support. So functionally they are different, but origin is the same. The other one is completely different. Now say we are in the school, okay? One person comes from a family of doctors, one person comes from Chennai, one person comes from Bangalore, one person comes from Mumbai, one person comes from a family of businessmen, another person comes from a family of farmers. So like this, from so many different origins, we are all coming to the same function of what? Studying in the school. Correct? Same way here also, the structures are all different, but they perform the similar function. Okay, best example is that potato and sweet potato. Okay, so if you see, potato is a stem, sweet potato is a root. So origin wise, one is a root, one is a stem. That itself is completely different. But when they're all coming to the same basket, they look alike. They perform similar functions like storing the food, right? So sweet potato and potato are very similar in function, but they are completely different in their origin. Same thing. Wings of a butterfly and a bird. Both have wings, both are flying. But for a butterfly, it is only an extension of the exoskeleton. But for the bird, it is its entire forewing. So like this, from so many different parts, from origins, we are coming to the same dot for the same function. So that we call as a convergent evolution. Okay. Clear? So this divergent and convergent evolution, please remember, because it is extremely important. Apart from that, even the molecular evidence, if you analyze the proteins, the genes and all the biochemical similarities, you can obviously correlate the different species, and you can understand from whom and from where these molecules have evolved. Okay. Now apart from that, there is an artificial selection evidence. Okay. What is artificial selection? So artificial selection is basically human created. Okay, for example, selective breeding that we have done in many plants and animals for agriculture, for sports security, and so many other reasons, we have inculcated these breeds. For example, there are a lot of wild breeds of dogs also, okay, from an ancestral population that have been selectively bred in such a way that they can be domesticated, they can be used as pets. But actually speaking, their purpose is something completely different and their nature is something completely different. Understood, everybody? Now, coming to evolution in action, which is industrial melanism. This particular story is very interesting because in England, in the period of 1850s, when there was no industrialization happening, there was white lichens that were covering the trees. There was no pollution. So in the white background, nicely the white-winged moths were camouflaged. The dark-winged moths that were melanized moth, they were visible to the predators. So as a result, the predators could see the black moth and they used to eat the black moth. That time what used to happen? Population of white moth used to be more, dark moth used to be less. But later, nature itself changed. So industrialization happened, pollution started coming. So as a result, the lichens started dying, the soot started depositing. Then what happened? The trees became dark because of the soot, because of the lichens dying. Now as a result, what happened? This white moth became visible to the predators, whereas the dark moth was camouflaged. So automatically dark moth population started going up, white moth population started coming down because predators could only see the white moth in the dark tree. So like this, nature itself has evolved to choosing more dark-winged moths compared to the light-winged moths. Okay, so this way what happens, because the environment is changing, whoever adapts to the environment better will be selected by the nature. Understood, everybody? Now, still, even after industrialization, in the rural areas where the industries were not there, still what happened? Still the white moth were in a higher frequency because the predators cannot see them in the light wood. Okay, so it is not like the species is competing, but it is the nature that is choosing. So under natural selection, this industrial melanism is a very important factor that you have to remember. Okay, so camouflage principle is just hiding in the background so that the predators can't see. Okay, now visual predators will only see whomever they can see and they will catch them and eat. Okay, so whoever is adapted to that advantageous phenotype, only they will be selected. But here nobody was completely wiped out. They were there, it was just less in population. Understood? So here from this, what do we understand? Evolution is not deterministic, means we don't know which direction it is going to go. Okay, it is based on the chance of events, it is based on the mutation. So it's a very random process, which we can say it is a stochastic process. Okay, now coming to the antibiotic and pesticide resistance. Now these microorganisms or these pests were never resistant. Okay, but what we did, first we gave little dosage. So in that little dosage, that fellow was dying. Somehow he understood how to live through and he became alive in that less concentration. Then what happened? You put less concentration, he won't die because now he's already resistant. Now from there, the other species will then start, becoming like that. More dosage we'll put, then more dosage. So today antibiotic 250 mg is not available at all. Okay, 500 mg still you have to take for 5 days, 2 times a day. So like that, if you see microbes, pests, we are introducing these organisms and we are creating the drug resistance in them. Okay, so herbicide resistant varieties are developing quickly in the plants. Antibiotic resistance is increasing. Okay, in the last few years itself, I mean not even centuries we're talking about, in few months, in few years, we are developing more and more antibiotic resistance genes in the microorganisms to survive what we have created. Understood, everybody? So this particular resistance is also something that has got to do with evolution. Okay, so all our action, which we call as anthropogenic action, has led to this kind of a evolution. Okay, so this demonstrates that it is not like, you know, nature has this much of a period and within this period only it will happen. Nothing like that. Okay, so it can operate either way. It is a chance based event. Okay, so there is no direction and there is no outcome that you can determine. It is very, very random is what we say. Now, what is adaptive radiation? It is that in the same geographical area, okay, simple, you go to eat in a restaurant, you want masala dosa. But then so much of queue is standing for masala dosa. Time is already 9 o'clock. So either you can wait until 12 o'clock and he will say, sorry pa, dosa is over. And then you can go home hungry. Or what you can do, okay, so what if masala dosa is not there? I will have puri, you can say, and you can change. That is what happens. In the same geographical area, if let's say there was a particular bird eating seeds, if I had to wait for the seed, I might even die waiting for the seed. So instead, what I will do smartly, I will evolve, I will change my face little bit, my beak little bit, and I will go and eat fruits, or I will go and eat insects, or I will go and eat leaves. I'll do something, but I will survive. So this is what we call as adaptive radiation. Okay, so it starts from a single ancestral population, but within the same geographical area, they adapt to different habitats and different ecological roles. Okay, means what? In the same hotel menu, masala dosa illati puri, that's all. Okay, so every species has distinct features that is suited for that particular niche. Okay, so masala dosa people cannot digest puri. Puri people cannot digest masala dosa. So I will change myself to a puri person so that I can only have that. Okay, so that is what Darwin's finches were talking about. So Darwin saw that in the Galapagos Island, there were small back birds called the finches. Okay, so these finches, they were actually seed-eating forms. But from the seed-eating forms, so many finches evolved, and now we have one seed-eating, one fruit-eating, one insect-eating, and so on. Okay, so this shows that continuous evolution has been happening. Okay, so original form was seed-eating. After that, we have the insectivorous, vegetarian, and other specialized form. Okay, so means from one ancestral finch, multiple species have been adapted for the specific food source or the habitat. Same way with the marsupials, Australian marsupials. Okay, so they all had a single ancestral stock. From there, what happened? Because of the continental drift, Australian island became separate. So in this continent, every species became different to each other and they adapted one place. Okay, so from a single ancestor, we have multiple marsupials in the same place. Now, what is convergent evolution in the adaptive radiation? Means when multiple adaptive radiations, okay, I'm talking about finches 1. But like that, when multiple adaptive radiations have happened in a particular geographical area, they are similar to the organisms in other places in similar ecological roles. For example, if you look at a marsupial mole and a normal placental mole, whatever habitat a normal placental mole lives in, the same habitat marsupial mole also lives in, but where? In Australia. So in the same habitat, since evolution happened parallelly here also, both of them did not see each other, but both of them came to the same habitat. Now they perform similar functions, so they look very similar. So a marsupial mole and a normal mole looks very, very similar. Same way, a sugar glider or a flying phalange or a flying squirrel. So both of them have evolved in a similar way to occupy a similar habitat. Clear, everybody? So definitely do scan the QR code and join the WhatsApp community before I continue into the chapter. We still have some important points to cover, but definitely do scan and join in Pasangla. And our crash course is now live, so you can join the online or the offline crash course now and still crack your NEET 2026. So use the code XPL10, call the number and secure your seats as soon as possible. Okay, so now continuing the Australian placental mammals. Like I said, normal is placental wolf. From there, the Tasmanian wolf, both of them having the similar function. So they evolved similarly for the same ecological role, proving that they converged together, proving a convergent evolution in the same adaptive radiation framework. Understood, everybody? Okay, now this is the list. So please remember what are the placental mammals and what are the Australian marsupials that were present. Okay, now coming to mechanism of the evolution. Okay, now Darwin versus Mendel. Now Darwin said that there is natural selection, means the genes that are influencing the phenotype. What Mendel discovered, what Darwin said is slowly it will move on. That's all, pa. But he didn't know Mendel's work. Mendel didn't know Darwin's work. So, the difference and connection between genetics and evolution was not very clear. Okay. Because Darwin's theory, what did they say? They said that there are small variations that will happen. All these variations are heritable and they will only move towards one direction. So, beak is changing means only in one direction it will keep changing. It is very gradual. Many generations after generation it will take and only then it will change. Okay. And he also said that over a long time, small variations will accumulate and the organism will change slowly. This is what he said. So, time scale, it will take millions of years only, he told. But we had a stark opposite one guy was there called De Vries. So, Hugo De Vries said that is wrong. Okay, he was working on primrose plant and he said mutations will happen. One large sudden mutation will happen. This is random. This is directionless. Okay. And this single large step mutation we will call as saltation. So these large mutations will create a new species. Now this species will be created rapidly. But the problem is, it can be a favorable one, it cannot be a favorable one. We don't know. Okay, it can be something we want or don't want. We cannot control the direction. It is random, is what he said. So from there, we had another set of scientists called the Hardy and Weinberg. So Hardy-Weinberg principle basically says that there is a certain allele frequency in the population. Okay, so what is allele frequency? Dominant allele is there, recessive allele is there. So, we can indicate as P and Q. Okay. So, P and Q, the sum of the individual frequencies should be equal to 1. Okay. If there is no evolution taking place, everybody is in an equilibrium, then this should be equal to 1. So, if they don't change, means there is a genetic equilibrium. Okay. Now, gene pool is what? The total genes and alleles of the population that are always there is what we call the gene pool. So, if it is constant, it will always be constant is what he told. P plus Q equals 1. Now, from there, if you take the binomial expansion, okay, what do we get? P square plus Q square plus 2PQ. P square is nothing but homozygous dominant, okay, AA. Q square is nothing but recessive, okay. Heterozygous, we have 2PQ, okay. So, same 1:2:1 ratio, okay. So, 1:2:1 ratio में we will get the expansion. So, if this total, okay, P square plus Q square plus 2PQ equals 1. That means population is in genetic equilibrium. Okay. So, if you measure the allelic frequency, compare it to the expected value. Okay. What you can do? You can calculate the difference between the actual and the expected, and that will give us the different kind of evolution that is taking place. Whether evolution is happening or not, which direction it is happening, how fast it is happening, everything we can find out from this particular equilibrium, this thing. So, if there is a deviation, that means evolution is taking place. Okay. So, in this Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium, there are 5 major factors that will disrupt it. Means what? Causing evolution. First thing we have is gene migration or the gene flow. So, gene flow means the population is moving to a new place. Okay. So, that means there will be transfer of the genes that is happening. So, as a result, what will happen? New alleles are coming or the alleles are going out. From the original population, they are being lost. So, when this happens continuously, it will cause a gene flow and the allelic frequency of both the population from where they came and where they are going to, both will change. Okay. Genetic drift is when suddenly, okay, not by selection, by a matter of chance, if there is a change in allele frequency, you call it a genetic drift, okay. So it's a completely random process, and this happens when the okay, now when you look at this drift in population, suddenly from a population, if this alleles went and they started a new population, they become the founders. So it is called as the founders effect, okay. So that is particularly when they go and they produce a new population on their own, okay. So usually this is very random and sometimes dramatically it will happen, okay. Mutation, normally all kinds of allele go through a standard gradual mutation. So suddenly some variations may be created, and this can introduce a new feature or new trait into the gene pool, because of which evolution can take place, okay. Then genetic recombination is when normally during sexual reproduction in the meiosis stage, what happens, new combination is happening, creating new variations in the offspring. And natural selection, here the based on what kinds of variations are produced, the nature will choose who should reproduce more, okay. Now this differential reproduction is the basis for the fitness, and this will cause the speciation to happen. So allele frequencies will change, and more advantageous alleles and traits will be chosen over the non-advantageous ones, okay. Now coming to the natural selection, either I can choose in the center, in the mean values, which I will call as stabilizing selection. Means what? It is a more uniform one. For example, our height, okay, all of us fall in one range of 5 feet to 6 feet average. So this becomes a mean of the population. Directional is when one individual, most of the individuals will acquire a value that is extreme, not an average. So that means what? For example, the giraffe's neck, always it is on the either side only. There is no short neck, long neck in the giraffe. It is all long neck only in the giraffe. So the peak is to one of the side. Disruptive is when the individuals are either left or right. Nobody is there in the average. It is either low or high. So that means what? Two peaks are there. So there is no intermediate phenotypes, only a white or a black. For example, the natural selection in the moths, okay. So these three kinds of natural selection can determine the different traits that are chosen by nature in the population, okay. Now coming to how this evolution occurs. Firstly, variations are coming from where? From mutation, from genetic recombination, from gene flow, from genetic drift. All of these variations are produced. Now these variations will be passed on to the next generation, okay. And once the variations are passed on, the nature itself will enhance the reproductive success of those traits which are beneficial for us, okay. So now as this accumulates over generation after generation, suddenly we will have a new species with all these advantageous traits that are selected by the nature itself. Got it, everybody? Now microbial evidence for speciation is that any pre-existing advantageous mutations that are there, okay. If you are in a condition and naturally you have had some mutation and you are selected, then new phenotypes are produced in that same whatever phenotype is there is produced within the next few generations. So this means what? If you have a certain situation, you have to adapt in it, then nature itself will create that variation within few generations. It would have taken up that trait. For example, instead of glucose, if you cultivate a organism in lactose, immediately within some 3 to 4 generation, it will adapt, okay. Now coming to the brief account of evolution. This basically shows us how each of these plants and animals have evolved from an ancestor, okay. So this table as well as the other one for animals, I would personally suggest that you can just go through, okay. With respect to board exams, it's not like you will always get a question to describe this entire table. You might get MCQs from it, okay. That is the maximum that you will get for both the animals and the plants, so you can go through that. Now coming to the last topic, which is evolution of man. Firstly, remember this particular mnemonic, dragon namakella theriyum. But hence, if you remember, you can remember entire evolution of man. So firstly, D for Dryopithecus, it was ape-like, like a monkey, okay? So it is the oldest evolutionary lineage that we have. Then R stands for Ramapithecus, which is more human-like, okay, closer to the human lineage, but it's between a koranguku manishanukku nadulengra madri type of a species. Then comes Australopithecus, okay, A for Australopithecus. Now this Australopithecus was man-like, okay, fossils we have got from different places and little hominid kind of features are there, but the first human-like hominid was basically Homo habilis, okay, H. Okay, so D, R, A varikku mudichirkom, A for Australopithecus. So this was the fellow who was eating fruits and he started hunting, and it's the transition fellow between the Homo genus and the early hominids that were present. Okay, then H is for Homo habilis. So habilis was the first human-like hominid, first true hominid. So he started standing straight, brain capacity was 650 to 800, and he started using the tools, okay, but no clear evidence of meat eating yet. Now then after that, E for Erectus. So Erectus was also called the Java man because that's where we discovered the fossils, okay. The brain is slightly large, about 900 cc, okay, and the brain size increased compared to the Homo habilis, okay, about this thing. And this is where there is evidence for meat eating because he started doing the predations, okay. Then he started walking in 2 feet and started using stone tools for his hunting. Then N for Neanderthal man. So Neanderthal man was seen in the near, somewhere close to the east to central Asia. So he had a very high brain capacity, about 1400 cc, and this is the largest pre-modern brain, okay. And here he started using clothes. He started hiding his body with certain animal skin and all of those things, and then he buried his dead. He started adapting to ice age climate, and he had a much more sophisticated behavior compared to the ape-like beings that we were. Now from there is where we have the modern Homo sapiens. These Homo sapiens, particularly during the Ice Age period, is when we evolved into a proper Homo sapien. They arose in Africa and they migrated across the continents, and they developed distinct races according to the geographical adaptations. And this had modern anatomy and modern cognitive capacities that we have today, okay. And we started seeing cave art about 18,000 years ago. So there is a lot of artistic expression that is seen, okay. Different artistic work gives us evidence of the kind of thinking and consciousness that they had, okay. And also, for example, the Bhimbetka rock shelter in Madhya Pradesh shows such kind of cave art that is there, okay. So there is a lot of aesthetic as well as spiritual awareness that is involved. And then after that, we had agriculture. So agricultural revolution took place almost 10,000 years ago. So from hunting, we started to produce the plants that we require to eat. We domesticated the plants and animals, and human settlements started happening about 10,000 years ago, okay. So that is how our evolution has taken place. Simply dry hands remember panikittingana ungaloda entire human evolution is complete, okay. Now definitely do scan the QR code and join the WhatsApp community, because we are going to help you completely analyze and understand your portions before your board exams, okay. So for all the updates, definitely do scan the WhatsApp notification, the QR code for all the notifications, and you can scan this QR code to join our XPL course for the NEET 2026. So if you are preparing for your board exam and you want to crack NEET also, this might be your last shot, okay. So definitely do give it a try, and do subscribe our channel for all the recent updates and all the notifications. So definitely do follow our channel, because all the videos are lined up just for you, and we will rock the coming exam like never before, okay. So all the very best everybody. I hope this was useful to you, and I'll see you all very soon in the next class. Bye bye.